Welcome to another day in the Matrix, waters above crypto. Over the past couple days, the crypto market has shown some signs of strength as we're approaching Mercury retrograde, which is tomorrow. So in today's video, I'm going to cover the scenarios I see playing out over the next week, which will include the full moon on Monday. So I'll start this one off with some Gematria and numerology connections and tie it into the charts of Bitcoin, Ethereum, XRP, and I'll also be sharing a quick analysis on the DXY US dollar currency index, since that could be playing a role in the trajectory of the crypto market over the next couple of months. So if you're new here, we do cryptocurrency technical analysis and combine it with Gematria Numerology and Astrology to understand these markets. Feel free to subscribe and turn on the bell notification to stay updated on when new videos come out. And make sure to like this channel and share with other conscious beings to help grow this community. And for those of you that want to learn how to do technical analysis and combine it with Gematria, you can join my Mastermind course. The link to my website can be found in the description box of this video and in the pinned comment below for access to the Mastermind course. And with that being said, let's take the red pill. So, there's been some crazy price volatility over the past week, as I've warned everyone, because going back to last week around this exact time, 7 days ago, we were having the 666-day connection back to the start of the pandemic back in March of 2020, and we watched all of that come to pass. And then on the days of January 10th and January 11th, we had a little bit of a pivot, and I was warning everyone of this because of the 1 and the 111 connection. So January 10th being 1-1 in the 222 year, and January 11th being the 111 in the 222 year, and this being 4 months and 4 days since Rosh Hashanah. Another big connection here was the following date, giving us the 55 date numerology, and that 55 comes back to Satoshi Nakamoto in Gematria, Chaldean right here. You could see that 55. So this whole week was definitely a setup for some change, and the lows that we had on the date of the 10th were actually 111 days since the lows we had around the full moon of Rosh Hashanah. So this will just be a quick recap of my last video, and we'll see how that all came to pass. So this 100-day connection to the 21st of September to the 10th, going from low to low. And then we also have from the big dump that we had on the day of Rosh Hashanah, going back to the big correction on May 19th, that's 111 days. So this 111 connection was massive because, of course, this all happened on the 1-1 date in the 222 year, and it leaded into the transition of the 111. The date numerology, the 11th day of the first month of the new year of 2022. There's a lot of numerological connections we're going to have this year, of course, just because of this 222. And we know that we have some big important things happening in February, such as Chinese New Year. We have the start of Platinum Jubilee. And then we also have the 2-2 date, and then the 22nd of February, the 222 in the 222 year. And we are currently in the Hebrew year of 5,782, which reduces down to 22. This is the master builder, master destroyer number. So it's a very important thing to take into consideration because this is all happening during the year of Shemitah, which is the 7-year sabbatical cycle practiced in Judaism and practiced in the world financial system. So with that being said, there's a lot of connections that we can make here. We're going to be doing a lot of date numerology over the next pretty much the whole year, because everything that's happening this year is very crucial as we transition through the end of Rosh Hashanah, which will be in September of 2022. We've seen this happen in the past, and when I brought this up to the world back in May, how ever since September of 2021, we're going to start to see lots of change in our world, lots of change in the legal system. We're going to see lots of change in the financial system and life as we know it. And we're starting to see that kind of unfold now as we've transitioned into the 2022 year. Lots of control happening, lots of, we're even seeing some civil unrest happening in certain nations. It's kind of gearing up for transition, and perhaps the months of April and May are going to tell us the big story of what's to come. But historically, we see big market volatility when the Shemitah ends, because Shemitah in Hebrew means release. So when we get to September of 2022, which is pretty far away from now, it's about 9 months away, We historically see that it's the months of October, November where we get really, really big change in finances. So I know a lot of you come to this channel because of what I go over with crypto. I know a lot of people also come to this channel because of the exposing of the truth of how Gematria Numerology and Astrology runs this market. And I do my best to get everyone prepared as far in advance as I possibly can. And I'm just going to start this one out by letting everyone know, this is going to be one of those years that really, really sets us up for how things are going to be moving forward. Just like the year of 2020 was a huge setup. Again, we had Event 201 back in the year of 2019, and that was 6 months in advance, setting us up for the year of 2020, which again turns back to 22. And this year, the Hebrew year of 5782 becomes the 22. This is not by mistake because this number is very important in the occult. All right. So let's just get going with all of this, but I wanted to lay this out. It's really the month of April into May that I'm looking for perhaps an all-time high in the market, but also followed by massive collapse in the market. And the more and more that I'm studying this and the more decoding I'm doing in the background, that's kind of the time frame that I'm seeing here. And I've had a lot of people reach out to me talking about other astrologers that they follow mentioning the same thing, kind of this idea of bullish price into March, April, and then a little bit of, chaos around May. And as we move forward, I'm going to be sharing tons of information about this, but these next 2 months are sort of, difficult to figure out just because of all the connections. And one of the things that is also quite important for people to remember is that January is really not the start of the new year. Okay, and this is something I've exposed when it comes to just the names of the months, the prefixes, like the month of October being oct being 8. So the month of November, Nov being 9. Then December, Dechi or Deci is 10. It's not 12, okay? So this is actually the 11th month of the year. January is 11 when you consider it as the months. Don't look at these numbers down here. Just follow what I'm saying, okay? So the real end of the year is next month, guys. February, it's the end of the cycle. And March is the true new year. It is when the harvest starts. It makes so much more sense when you perceive it this way, okay? And of course, we do have a 13th zodiac. It's hidden. It's not spoken about. But more importantly, the cycle actually starts in March. So when they declared the pandemic back in March of 2020, again, the 2-2 year, in the true first month of the year, this wasn't by accident, okay? This was them restarting everything. And that's why we had a huge market crash that bottomed on March 13th, which was a Friday the 13th. Guess what happens in May? We have a Friday the 13th. So that's going to be something that I'm going to start talking a lot more about, just trying to set us up as best as I can get you guys moving into the next 4 to 5 months. Try to get a lot of information to you guys far in advance, just like I did last year with the month of May. I started exposing Shemitah all the way in September, but back in May. And that kind of information is something I feel helps a lot of people to just get spiritually prepared, to get, calm, and to be so prepared for things so far in advance that they don't need to worry like everyone else does when these big changes happen. So one of the things that I mentioned in my last video was how I was perceiving the dates of January 10th and January 11th as a pivot point. Perhaps moving into the 12th and the 13th, we would start to see some sort of bullish reversal into Mercury retrograde. I actually also exposed this in my last Red Pill podcast, which was over this weekend, and I was discussing how this is how I was perceiving this energy as we moved into Mercury retrograde, and that's actually exactly what happened. We saw those 666 date connections of January 5th, bringing us the first, pullback, and then January 10th was the lows, which were 111 days from our last lows. Then the 11th was the pivot point. The 12th was when we started to get a big, more of a bullish reversal in energy. And then here we are on the 13th. We're kind of just riding the wave. And then we have tomorrow. Tomorrow being the 14th, and this date being Mercury retrograde. Couple things to note, like I brought up in my last video, the 4 months and 7 days since the start of Rosh Hashanah, this 47 comes back to the atomic number of silver. This is very important. I'm going to show you a little bit more about that in a moment. But we do have the connection here of the date numerologies. So when you add up the date, including double digits, the way it is added right here, which is my favorite way to do date numerology, by the way, we can see that it matches Rosh Hashanah. And remember, on this day, we did have a pullback. So I'm wondering if this will be sort of like an as above, so below reaction, because typically we do see Mercury retrograde is more bullish. It's not necessarily the first day of Mercury retrograde that's bullish. It's just the time frame of it. So from the 14th of January tomorrow until I think the 3rd of February, we're going to be having Mercury stationed in retrograde. So there's clearly some other connections here with the date numerologies. You can see these 37s, the 21s, the 57, and then the mirror of 21 and 12. Something to consider. And we will be transitioning into the 15th day of this year. This 15 number comes back to this Chinese New Year that we're about to have, which is the tiger, and that 15. And also, you know, I've shared this with you guys so many times. The new variant is the 15th Greek letter, and that was really the turning point. They did this around Sagittarius in 2021, and that was on purpose. I showed you guys that in the code, and it was insane to see it all come to fruition the way it did. And they're still leveraging on that to push mandates of the jab and all this other draconian nonsense that we knew about on this channel, sharing back pretty much almost a full year ago. We knew this would come, and here we are, and it's all going to happen this year in particular, setting us up for the year of 2023, which is the release, okay? Right now, we're building up energy, we're building up confusion, and then we release that energy and change everything. And that's when the harvest is. That's when they come to collect, all right? That's how this reality, this matrix reality works, okay? So with this all going on, I was also bringing up in my last video how the 15th of January also has this 58 date numerology, and this 58 comes back to Mercury retrograde in the code. Excuse me. Right there, 58 Chaldean. So this is a huge connection, and I was bringing up a bunch of other things regarding Mercury in my last video in connection with XRP. But the big thing here is this 58 in Chaldean, again, on the 15th day. And we have the 58 date numerology. This 58 and 15 ties back to XRP. Okay, 58 and the 15. And in full reduction, XRP gives us the 22, just like we are in the Gregorian year of 2022, or the Hebrew year reduced down to 22, which is telling me that this is the year of XRP. Okay, it's between now and 2024, because 24 is the X, 24th letter. But more importantly, I believe it is 2022. And I'm not saying that because I'm an XRP army cult leader moon boy. You guys know how I feel about this coin. I told you that it will be suppressed until it is not suppressed. And then once it is not suppressed, it will skyrocket. And I have even very conservative targets for that. By the way, I have a video that I'm planning to come out with on Patreon very soon. And it will be titled "The Reason Why XRP Isn't Basically, why isn't it going up? Why hasn't it had its huge explosive move just yet?" And I'm going to share with you guys why I think it's going to go to where it goes, the reasons, the technical analysis, the Gematria, everything. So I have that video. I'm planning that very soon, because there's been a lot of XRP hate. And this happens a lot. When coins are down and suppressed and boring, there's a lot of hate. And it's not just about XRP. You know, I was probably one of the first channels to discuss XRP in every single video, but be very realistic about it and show you why it does what it does based on the code. And that was really, it hurt a lot of people, because they were coming to my channel from people that were pushing these ideas of 6-figure XRP, 3-digit XRP even, which, you know, I'm not going to talk down on those people, but we need to have some baby steps first. You know, baby steps before we're sprinting. And if we're seeing a coin sub $1, why are we talking about it at 3 digits? That kind of stuff is really unfair to the listener, to the supporter. And for me, I don't roll that way. You know, I'm showing you guys in the code. And we've done this time and time again where we saw XRP bottom at 51 cents. That 51 call came out because the reverse of 15 or the mirror of 15, 51. Again, like time and time again, we've seen this code play itself out pretty much perfectly. I mean, even recently, most of the support we saw for XRP was around 76 cents, and that 76 comes back to Ripple. Okay? And this ties to Jupiter with the 27. And we know this energy is big, okay? Anyone who's followed my work by now knows that this is big energy, Jupiter. So let's not get too caught up in this. I do want to show you guys a little bit more about what's going on with this Mercury retrograde chart. So let's step into it. I know that this might look a little bit confusing, so let me turn off some of the moon phases and see what we have going on here. So this is a chart that I shared actually on my Patreon about a week ago or so, and it was dealing with all of these moments when we had eclipses, predominantly back-to-back eclipses. Like you could see, we do have isolated eclipses like we did right here. And it's really these total eclipses that bring us big energy. So we had right here the total lunar eclipse about like 4 or 5 days before that. We have the May 19th correction. You could see right here the day of the total solar eclipse we had on the 4th of December. Huge energy wipeout. And then we lead into Mercury retrograde. So what I'm interested in with this is the fact that we have these two back-to-back eclipses, and then we have one of them being a huge energy transition in the market, and then we stayed sideways. But we could also see there's a couple iterations of Mercury retrograde, which are in these red boxes, where we do just move up bullish the whole time. So we have right here, this is Mercury retrograde, bullish. And we have here, in the pretty much beginning of 2021, about a year ago, bullish. And then even back here around September, after the full moon of September when we bottomed out, pretty much just bullish the whole way. So it's interesting to see how this is going to play out because we just got done with back-to-back eclipses, one of which being a total solar eclipse. And this type of energy could cause what happened back here. So that would be like we do come back down for a double bottom sometime, you know, in the month of February. I don't want to be too specific with the times. I would personally prefer early February if I had to, like, you know, perceive this any other way. And in the meantime, we could actually move up into the end of this month and then pull back. And we don't necessarily need to make a double bottom. But because we've had iterations of this in the past where we see that these big double bottom moments happen, especially after we have a big washout, low volume, very boring, scary. This is sort of something that I'm leaning on as a possibility. And if this was to happen, like a boring end of this month plus a boring like mid-February, that would be a bullish setup in my opinion, because the longer that they make this boring and low priced, this gives more time to shake out people from the market. Because what they like to do with the you know, in Wyckoff method, we call them composite man, or, you know, here we've just been calling them the lizards. You know, these people who run the market, they first will scare you out by bringing down the prices substantially, and then they will bore you out. And after they bore you out, what they do is then they bring interest back, and they do this with their fake news. So they'll either push narratives around whatever going on, you know, like, and this is pretty amazing how they time it. You know, so if we did get a double bottom, just to give you a scenario, imagine they come out and say Amazon's buying Bitcoin or Amazon's investing in Ethereum. That's all they need to push the market up. So we've seen that shit happen before, like right back here. We saw a big bloody washout, and then they started talking about Tesla investing in Bitcoin. And then all up here, they started, Elon started talking about Doge and Shiba. But then when the market had a huge shit, Elon was coming out and exposing that he barely holds any Shiba or Doge. He predominantly holds Bitcoin, and Bitcoin is on Tesla's balance sheet. So how you see how they're manipulating people? This man could come out and say that he's a Bitcoin maxi, and it still won't matter the same as when they were pushing Shiba and Doge, because they're just ritualizing this market one step at a time. First they have Bitcoin season, then they have alt season, then they have shitcoin season, then they have dump season, then they have boring season, then they have FOMO you back in season. It's fucking cyclical, okay? And people need to learn this stuff because they get so caught up in the news. So I'm letting you know, once they scare you out, they bore you out, and then they give you some nonsense, a narrative. And these narratives we know are completely made up. Even the economic narratives we hear about tapering and, all of this stuff, it's fugazi, it's fake. Everything about our economy is made up. It's make believe. And if people aren't aware of that by now, then that's really sad, because here we are living in this time frame where we're seeing inflation skyrocket through the roof. People are pretty much not doing shit about it, and it's clear as day to me that this new world order could control people to an extent of where there's almost no sovereign nature in our lives anymore. And people will actually be happy with that. Just like the World Economic Forum says, you will own nothing and you will be happy. They're not lying to you. They're telling you the truth. And I'm not speaking to you guys necessarily, because I know the people that gravitate towards my work and who are listening to this transmission are enlightened beings, but you're also surrounded by people who are sleepwalkers, and it's important that I'm speaking my truth to you so you speak your truth to them, and we could win this fight. But until then, as long as people believe in all of this stuff, believe in everything they're being force-fed by the media, well, then how are we going to have an awakening? So I'm here to expose exactly what it is that's moving this market around, which is a huge ritual based on a time loop. And this time loop was designed by people who have basically are magicians, and it's wild to think about. But once you start studying the Rothschilds and, all of these people that are behind the creation of the monetary system to begin with, you're going to start to, unlock some layers into why it's so fraudulent and how it's able to still exist at the rate that it still exists. It's quite fascinating. So one of the other things that I think is interesting about this chart is I do have this firmament dome. I've shown people this back in the past when we had this distributional top for Bitcoin, which ended around these two eclipses and then Mercury retrograde. And this is a similar setup, guys. We have a firmament dome, and this firmament is actually huge dump around the eclipse, and then we see it drag out pretty much an equivocal amount of days from left to right, and then we're starting to get some resistance on the outside of it today. So it'd be interesting if we broke through it and then back tested the outside of the firmament, because I'll show you right here how that worked out in the prior iteration of the firmament dome. So right here you can see we had this crazy accurate firmament dome, which it started all the way back over here. We have multiple touch points, resistance, touch point, and then every single new high we had a touch point until we had the big washout. So this was the eclipse, and then here, once we started trading into it again, we actually broke through it in a sideways boring kind of consolidation range, and then rode the outside of the firmament on a double bottom, and then we left to create a new all-time high. So I actually drew a similar length of firmament, which is kind of more similar to this one as opposed to the last chart I showed you. And this could be making a little bit more sense in regards to dragging us out for like perhaps highs into April and May, like I've told you about before. I'm more focused on the month of April. So this would be really interesting to see this all play out if we were to get this price action right here, where we break through, have a little bit of trading on the outside into the full moon of this month, which is coming up in like 4 days, bounce outside of it, and then we start to see this next firmament that I've shown you on this chart start to play out, probably by the full moon of February. This would all be in alignment with the timing of boring people out. It takes about like 100 days to bore someone out of the market. And if we look from here, this big washout to about here where we got the release, so it was about 64 days. That's about 2 months. That's a pretty substantial amount of time in crypto. 1 day in crypto feels like a month in the stock market. So when it comes to a 60 to 70 day period of time, that's pretty arduous. And if we were to look right here from when the start of this crown top was until the breakdown, that's about 96 days. So we typically spend as about many days in reaccumulation as we do in distribution, for those of you that study Wyckoff. And right now, we know that there's a clear support level around 42. So we are about 167 days in this huge pattern. And that's why I warned people, if we are going to start breaking down into the 38K, 37K Bitcoin, there's a possibility for this head and shoulders to play out. And that's a macro head and shoulders. So it's no joke. So again, no hopium by talking about this bullish Mercury retrograde. I'm just showing you the charts. I'm showing you what we've seen happen before. And the fact that we've seen Bitcoin go below 30 RSI, it's pretty much the time that we start to expect a little bit of a bounce. Even Ethereum was dropping to about, 26 RSI on the daily. So with that being said, the obvious price target would be somewhere around 45K for the short-term resistance. And then for the big heavy resistance, it's going to be around 49 to 50,000 with the highs to break at 51.6. If Bitcoin can close dailies above 51.6, well, then we could have a noticeable reversal. But we're pretty far away from that, and I don't want to be, full-blown hopium just yet. We need to take it one step at a time. And because right here, this level, you could see if you pause the video, that's where all the prior support was, and that's typically the level that we would consider how are we going to react when we get back there, if we do get back there. Of course, Bitcoin can just roll over here, double bottom into late January, and then bounce a little bit later, and that would be a much better structure because that's just how it works. They get you to think that we're recovering instantaneously, but it's not. We've seen it happen back here, and this whole area back here, we saw that happen. It took a while, like I showed you, about 70 days off the bottom. And if we were to consider a similar setup right here of the 19th of May, this would be like akin to December 4th, okay? Now, if we took all the way over to the bottom right here on July 20th, let's call it July 21st, that's 63 days. So let's go from the date of the 4th over 63 days. And this is going to show you about February 5th would be a similar movement on the lows comparatively to what we got back here. And it's a similar setup. Crown distributional top, huge 30% plus wipeout, back-to-back eclipses, one of which was a total eclipse, Mercury retrograde. I mean, damn, it's so similar, actually. And it was barely a new all-time high. It's pretty much a double top bull trap. Okay, so we're close. We're close to getting some resolution, and I would say by mid-February we're gonna start to see that show up in the charts. So, with that being said, let's quickly get into the DXY before I forget that, because there has been some things showing in the DXY. First of all, we did have a break of the lows right here at around 95.5. We can see that that was the back test before the new high. That was the back test again on the 30th of November, and then an attempt of the 31st. Finished off the year okay. And then once we had this day, it was about 2 days ago, come to pass, there was a breakdown, and there was also some moving averages to align with that, and it was the 55. So once we closed below the 55 simple moving average on the daily, you can see that it broke down, and where it broke down to, it was actually a pretty clean level this morning. It was right here at about 94.6. I actually exposed that to the Patreon members yesterday in Trading Wolves that we should expect 94.6. That is exactly where we came down to today. And the reason I came up with that was because it's in alignment with this wick right here and these wick highs. So that's just a prior resistance. Could it flip as support? Yeah, of course. That's how it all works with TA. Now, we do have this cross coming in soon. This is the 8 simple and the 55 simple. This is a wolf cross. My cross that I use to determine basically reversals. So you can see that the last time that this was bearish crossed was back here on the 6th of September, which was literally Rosh Hashanah. Now, it was a fake out bounce continuation. And I know if I turn off the drawings, this might be more helpful. You see where we bounced off of this green moving average, which is the 200 exponential. We had multiple bounces. So here we were very, very bearish at that time, but it's a huge W pattern, which is a bullish pattern, okay? The first V of the W is a low. The second V is a higher low. And then once you recover above these 200s, you're pretty much good for a rally. Now, what we're seeing is this might have gassed out at around 77 RSI on the daily, and this is about to cross bearish again with a cascading price, as opposed to here, it was, it had some support because it was close to that 200 exponential. Right here, there's a big gap between the 55 and the 200, which is telling me, obviously, the next level to test for the dollar would be 93.9, pretty much 94. That would be in alignment with the 200 exponential. If it cannot hold that, then you're pretty much going to expect it to go to the 200 simple, and that would be a key level because that is the neckline of that W that I just showed you about, this W right here. So why does this all matter? Well, because if the DXY drops all the way to 93, that would give a relief rally to the stock market. The stock market will absolutely be heading towards new all-time highs. And then at the same time, that's going to support the crypto market. That'll also support the precious metals market. So with a drop all the way down to 93, which I'm not saying will happen, that's just the technicals. If we see this wolf cross, the odds are we're going to start heading down to the 94 level. If we cannot hold that 200 exponential, we're most likely going to slide down to the 200 simple, and that would be back testing the key level right here of this support before the breakdown, the neckline of the W, and pretty much all the resistance of that W before we had a relief rally. Now, one thing to watch out for also, this is the dollar, guys. It's not as volatile as something like crypto. So when this gets into slightly oversold on the RSI, you do need to pay attention to that. And right now we're sitting at 32 already. This was a very quick fall. That's not a good thing. Okay, so just when we're perceiving this technically, I do suspect we will get a bounce. And I do think the dollar is going to be bullish for the whole year, meaning I do not think it's going to break lower than 89. I don't think it'll go lower than that for now. I think that was the lowest it'll go, and this is pretty much a bull pattern. And this would make a lot of sense in the macro too, just because of the idea of inflation, and also something to go along with this. We're in Shemitah, and historically, Shemitah is a deflationary period. It always is, especially when the Shemitah ends, okay? So if you consider, we always... typically we see every 7 years on the 7th transitioning into the 8th year after Rosh Hashanah, we get a big market pullback. When the market pulls back, that is bullish for the dollar. So if we've already tested 96 with all-time highs in the stock market pretty much like a week ago, imagine we bounce off these 93 levels. This shit's gonna rally. So, I would not be surprised if by like the transition of November into December, almost at the end of next year, a full year away, we're up at 100. I would not be surprised with that. And then we'll see, it'll just be a wild environment, but that is pretty much what to expect when you consider Shemitah, when you consider that we have a bubble, like in the stock market, in the housing market, and all things considered. So I do see this being short-term bearish. That would lead up to a bullish March and April. But after that, I do see a recovery because we have sell in May, walk away. Stock market tends to sell off May into June. And then besides that, the fall time is always historically pretty bad for the market as a whole, and that is historically bullish for the dollar. So I gave you the short-term price target to the downside and how it's going to play out and what it could cause for the market as a whole. Hope that was helpful, because that stuff does actually matter. It didn't matter so much when we were in Sagittarius, when we were transitioning into the end of the year, but now that we're in the new year, it is going to start to show up and surface as a thing to consider in regards to our overall analysis. So the last thing to say about Bitcoin really is, if we're going to get any downside targets, it's probably going to be somewhere around the 91.4, 91.5 level. If we start to close dailies below that, that was when we would start to see, that's when we could start to see things get ugly. And if 40K cannot hold, well, that's lights out. So for now, on the upside, definitely 45.5 is something to watch out for. And then right what I told you about the 50K level, you can see these three moving averages coiled up. That's the 55, 200, exponential, 200 simple, all coiled up around that key level. And if we were to get above that and actually get rejected here at 52 and then come back down to this 45, that would be an inverse head and shoulders, and that will be incredibly bullish for this stage of the bull run. So we have our left shoulder, head, and then potential right shoulder, and that breakout target would be somewhere into 60,000, and that could take up until like the end of February, perhaps moving into March. So ETH, really quickly go over this. We do have a similar scenario where we bounced, actually made a higher low. We can't confirm it as a higher low until we break above 3,900, which is right there with the 55 simple moving average on the daily. So that is something to consider. We do have MACD bottoming out, perhaps a bullish cross coming soon. RSI still below 50, so it's not necessarily in bullish control. We can see that there's rejection possibility at these 200s, but holding the 8 simple moving average on the daily would be best. So coming down to bounce on the 8 simple, followed by a little bit of recovery, would be good. If we cannot hold that 8 simple, we're probably going to come down for a retest of 30,000. 40, probably 30,050 would be clear, and then we would have a short-term W pattern, something like this, and then bounce, and that area right there would be right in alignment with the 0.5 fib, and the rejection level I would consider is right here along this prior support line. So it was a resistance back at the prior all-time high. Rosh Hashanah, and then we held it as a support going all throughout this distributional top. And then once we broke down through it, we've yet to backtest it. So I do suspect if we are going to bullishly follow into it, it's probably going to be a rejection level. But of course, you guys know the analysis when you're doing pattern analysis. If you break above it and you backtest it with a volume supported bounce plus continuation that's higher than the high, the prior high, that's a breakout. Okay, so something to consider in regards to those pattern traders out there. Hopefully that's helpful. But the downside level holding 3050, which is the 0.5 fib, we have to hold that level unless we're going to move down to the next fib level around 2,700. That would be in alignment with Bitcoin coming back down to 40,000 again. Okay, so also I would suspect resistance around this 702 fib. That's typically where things get a little bit weird, but just getting back into the golden pocket and trading in that level would be a sign of strength. You could see that once ETH broke out recently off of the lows, got rejected right at the 618. Which is not good. It's showing you it is weak. And so until we could get above those 200s and start trading in this golden pocket again, it is just choppy sideways, building a base structure similar to what it did pretty much back here, where it was just chopping around for like a total of probably 8 or 9 days. Okay, so let's move on to XRP and wrap this video up. So XRP, damn. Very interesting structure we're holding. Actually not as bearish as it could have been comparatively to some other altcoins which have been trading back at their prior lows. XRP is actually holding this 70-cent level pretty damn well. Like I brought up in my decode earlier, that 76-cent level has been holding really nicely. And that 76-cent level makes sense because it comes back to Ripple with Gematria. Now, we have had a pretty bearish cross up here with the 55 going beneath both 200 moving averages. So for now, this is looking pretty bad on the moving average side of things. You can see that XRP does have lots of times where it likes to trade below these 200s. And this is a similar iteration to what we had back here. So you can see this 55 going below both 200s, just like it has recently. And after getting pretty low on the RSI read, somewhere around 30, like we've seen a read of 26 back on December 4th. Since then, there has been actually a little bit of a bullish divergence if you're going to disregard the wick. And yes, so this is actually looking pretty similar to this dump back here, all things considered. Some crown top highs, not able to hold support, dipping below the key moving averages, and then having a push up into them, rejection, followed by new lows. So it's a pretty similar structure. It happened right here, moving up into the 200, rejection, double bottom. Now, XRP and a lot of these altcoins do like to fill their wicks, but again, XRP was weird on this liquidation event of December 4th because there was some exchanges that did not go below 60. Some exchanges did. Some exchanges went as low as like 57. So these wicks are annoying because a lot of the leverage exchanges are just not giving you accurate readouts of where this wick actually went. It's called a scam wick. And that's really problematic if you're trying to use the wick to determine where this can fill. So for anyone out there that's interested in things like CME gaps and wick fills and all of that shit, it's okay if you want to perceive it that way, but just be careful if you're trading off of that stuff because it's not necessarily the most accurate way of perceiving this market. Fibonacci levels are way better, and one of the ways you can do that is going off your prior bounce level. So what I'm saying here is you have your bounce before the high, so we'll go from here with a bearish retracement. This is going to look really bad, guys. Let me show you on a clean chart and then wrap this one up just because I really want to show you what the hell I'm talking about. Okay, so we're going to do a bearish retrace, which will be from this bounce level right here before the breakout. And then we're going to go to the local highs in the structure, which is right here. I'm going to flip these fibs around and hopefully this teaches you something. I put my values on the right. And you could see where we bounced was a key level right there at the 786, the golden pocket. And you see this wick drowned out through the 888. The 888 is about as good as it gets. So if we cannot hold the 71-cent level, the 888 fib is about where this would fill, and that would pretty much be in alignment with the prior resistance level of this double bottom before continuation. If this does hold, we will know because we will start to see trading above the golden pocket again, which would be above 88 cents. Getting back above that level would also be in alignment with the 55 simple, and we would have to worry about these 200s, but it's like a sneeze away. And we know XRP, once it goes that low, look at what it does. Just fucking rockets right out of the pocket. So, you know, in the event that we were to have a similar structure where we came down again to the 786 level and then go up 150%, we'd be pretty much back testing the golden pocket of the big macro pull somewhere around 140. Right? So just something to keep in mind. That could take some time to play out. I suspect it could take probably until like mid-February to late February, just like I was saying with Bitcoin. But in the meantime, something to keep an eye on, this bearish retrace that I showed you, put that on your chart, study how this works a little more, and you're going to be able to determine price targets to the downside way before they happen. Because you could have pulled this to this, and you would have known 130 days in advance how low this can actually go, would be the 888, but more than likely accumulation is around the bottom of the golden pocket. Because this is a bearish retrace, it is in reverse. So that's 702 to the 786. That's the golden area to be accumulating for anyone who's long on any crypto. You could do this on every single crypto, guys. So that's a little tutorial on how to use those Fibonacci's. Anyways, if you guys were interested in learning more about how to do technical analysis and combine it with Gematria, you can get my Mastermind course, which is available on my website, watersabovecrypto.com, and also the Mastermind community over on Patreon. I'm going to be doing a lot of decoding this month, and I also plan to have some exit strategy stuff being released from my Mastermind course and as a separate product pretty soon for those of you that are interested in exit strategies. With that being said, let's see how Mercury retrograde plays out tomorrow over the next couple days, and then we do have our full moon coming up very soon, and I will be updating you guys with all that information in my next video. Have a great rest of your day. Much love.